I have the great pleasure of introducing Corie Berry, Chief Executive Officer of Best Buy. This past June, Corie was named the first woman CEO of Best Buy. And we are very proud.
Thank you.
Corie hails from Cambridge, Minnesota. And those of you Minnesotans know where that is. I looked on a map. It's about an hour north of here.
It is.
And she is a proud graduate of the College of St. Benedict.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I'll clap for that too.
That's a pretty half-hearted clapping. But I didn't burst into flame, which I was worried about here, so I feel like I'm winning already.
Well, as I told people, I tried to find something that had both purple and red in it to wear today. But I don't have anything in my closet that matches that dual role. But you know, the St. John's and the St. Benedict rivalry is probably the friendliest, fiercest rivalry there is in the country. So we have great respect for one another, and we're really proud that you hail from the College of St. Benedict and that you're here with us today.
Thank you.
Corie majored in business management and accounting, and we have some similarities there. She joined Best Buy in 1999. She's held a variety of financial and operational roles across the company, both in the field and at the corporate office. Corie served as Chief Strategic Growth Officer before being named as CFO in 2016. She has also served as Senior Vice President of Domestic Finance and Interim President of Best Buy's Services Organization. She serves on the board at the College of St. Benedict and on the board of Domino's Pizza and, of course, at Best Buy. So we are pleased to warmly welcome you, Corie. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
So I was getting to know Corie a bit as we visited on the phone in preparation for this and reading about her journey. I found several parallels to my own journey, in the sense that from ages 12 to 17, I lived in a rural part of a state. Now, a very different state, Florida, not Minnesota, but it was a rural community. I majored in business and accounting, and I ended up as the first female leader of an organization.
Congratulations.
Well, so I want to start with some of the beginning of your journey. And we'd like to ask you to help the audience understand how growing up in rural Minnesota, as a child of two self-employed artists, how that has helped shape your journey and your pathway.
Yeah. So first, thank you very much for having me, and thank all of you for taking time to be here. So there are kind of two sides to that story. One is, what's it like to grow up in rural Minnesota? And it's not like we were in town, we were out of town. We were in the country on 10 acres of land. And I didn't have siblings who lived in the house with me. So one of the first things I learned is how to entertain myself, which sounds a little silly, right? But there's no one else there who's going to entertain you. And that idea of imagination, that idea of self-starting, that idea of entertaining yourself, that idea of being alone and being okay with it, that for me was actually a really important part of growing up in rural Minnesota, as was an important appreciation for nature. An appreciation for the beauty of Minnesota. And while that sounds silly in terms of the journey, it's a big part of the reason it's important for me to stay here. I love this place. I grew up here, and I savor it. The second part of that is having two self-employed artists as parents. I always get the question, like, where did you come from? But a few things. My parents were very passionate about what they did. And they worked because they loved what they did. And they worked importantly because they felt they could change the world. That art actually fundamentally made the world a better place. And that idea of such love for your work. And for any of you who know self-employed people or have been self-employed, there is like this misnomer that you just kind of work when you want to. They worked all the time. All the time. And that devotion to work that you love, that really resonated for me. And as you can imagine, self-employed artists don't exactly rake in the dough. And so it also instilled in me a great work ethic around myself making my own way and being responsible for my own outcomes. And I give my parents so much credit for creating that environment.
So growing up in that household, and then you went to St. Ben's, and of course had the wonderful liberal arts education that you experienced there. Yes. And I know we all believe in the power of that education in this room, but tell us how that shaped your journey and your path.
I am incredibly passionate about liberal arts education, and I think we're very lucky in Minnesota to have a number of places that you can get an education. When you go out to any of the school's websites, you often can look for a mission or a vision. The mission for young women at St. Ben's is to teach women to think critically, lead courageously, and advocate passionately. And if I looked at St. Thomas, you have something similar: think critically, act wisely, work skillfully, right? This idea that we are creating young humans that are going to make the world fundamentally a better place is so embedded in a liberal arts education, and is so important for where the world is going from here. So there's like that part of this. The second part is that I think a liberal arts education teaches your brain to shift gears. And by that I mean you're as likely to be in a philosophy class and then walk down the hall and hit your tax accounting class. And that happened. And that ability for your brain to constantly be shifting gears, to constantly be challenging itself, the amount of time you spend writing, reading, orating, working with teams, those actually are the skills you're going to use, especially as your career progresses. The technical skills are important to start with, but as your career line progresses, those interpersonal, softer EQ kind of skills are actually what you end up flexing more, and those are the skills that a liberal arts education fundamentally believes in teaching you.
I couldn't agree more, and I certainly can resonate with the shifting gears. I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges as you become a leader. You're always shifting gears. Constantly. And if you can't do that quickly, and it drains you too much, that is a liability.
It will wear you out.
It will wear you out.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to mention, I met my best friends in the world who are nice enough to come listen to me speak, so that's lovely too.
And they did wear red, some of them.
I know. Sorry.
So moving on through your journey, you've seen Best Buy rise and fall and rise, and which is very typical in a number of industries these days. Mm-hmm. But during the 2012 years, you really played a major role in rejuvenating the company. It had hit some growing pains, and there was a strategy, I believe, called Renew Blue that you were very involved in and really designing and implementing. And I think there's been a lot written, but I think people still marvel that a lot of consumer electronics companies and retail companies that we knew at that time, Circuit City, a number of others, we don't see anymore, and Best Buy is thriving. Can you tell us a little bit about how that rejuvenation of the company occurred and what kind of lessons you learned during that process?
Yeah, the Renew Blue period, and there's a few tables of Best Buy friends here who also rode this journey, really was about us getting back to two sides of the coin. Fundamentally doing the things that we do well even better, and then admitting and saying out loud the things that weren't working well and fixing them. And there were 4 major tenets that we used in Renew Blue, and they'll sound very basic. They made all the difference. The first was admitting that you have to be priced competitively all the time in all the channels, which was hard for any retailer to admit, especially at that period. The second was admitting how important we are to our vendors. They spend billions of dollars on R&D, and they need somewhere to showcase it. We're better than Best Buy, and how could they help us refresh our stores in a way that would bring that to life? The third was admitting that our online experience had not kept up, and that we needed to disproportionately invest in digital experiences, which we'd already mentioned, and really moving resources into digital experiences, and importantly, moving resources also into the people in our stores. And then finally, having the courage to pull billions of dollars of cost out of our model. And that was awful hard work. But it was the only way that you could afford those first tranches of changes that we talked about. And the part that people forget about the turnaround is the first couple years were brutal. The first couple years, the operating income rate shrunk to almost nothing. The comps weren't there. It's not like it was this, like we made all those decisions, then magically the next day the stock was great. But if you stuck to the plan, you started to see changes. To your question about what we learned, we learned a lot. I could be up here for a long time, you'd be very bored. There were two big things that stuck out to me, and they were representative of Hubert Joly, who was our CEO, and Sharon McCullum, who was our CFO, who played very strong roles in this. Sharon had a strong point of view about what she called the say-do ratio. The idea that explain to people what you're going to do, and then show them proof points and evidence along the way. They don't have to be big, but make sure they understand you are doing what you say you're going to do. That's a big part of who Best Buy has become. And the second is the philosophy of riding the bike, and this was Hubert's. You need to, in order to ride a bike, just get on the bike and start pedaling. And it doesn't mean you exactly know which direction. You're probably going to wiggle all over the place. Get on the bike and start pedaling, and have the courage to do that. And I think those two tenets have really underscored where we've come. And then finally, the last thing I would say, some of the question I get sometimes is, why did you stay in the dark days? My family's calling me like, this thing's going down. You gotta get out of there. And for me, we talk a lot about purpose at Best Buy. And my personal purpose, what I believe importantly I am here to do, is try to leave the world, my work, my family, a little bit better than when I found them. And I couldn't leave. And I know I can see the eyes at the tables that are sitting here. There are a lot of us who couldn't leave because we knew fundamentally this was a great company and customers really liked us and wanted us. And we knew there was a nugget in there that could be great again.
Well, we're really grateful you did not leave. And I know Best Buy shareholders are really grateful you did not leave. So tell us about where you are now. Now, Best Buy continues in a growth phase. The current term you're using is New Blue, Chapter 2. Tell us a little bit about that. How have you continued to change and the way you interact with customers? And what do you see as some of the future new opportunities you may be pursuing?
So the Building the New Blue Chapter 2 is about bringing our purpose to life as a company. So we talk about our individual purpose, many of us. There is also what we believe is our purpose as a company. And importantly, the purpose is not to make money. That's an imperative, and trust me, the shareholders expect it. Our purpose is to enrich lives through technology. And that can sound like a tagline, or you can really think about how your life is different because technology exists. I'm on the road a lot. I FaceTime my kids a lot. I have a shared game of Pokemon that I share with my son that I occasionally play when I'm on the road. That is a connection point that is made possible only through technology. And how we think about enriching people's lives, then you start to think about important moments that matter in people's lives. What is it that they do? You don't just buy a TV because you want a box on your wall. You buy a TV because entertainment matters to you. Maybe you're a gamer, maybe you like sports. You have some expectation of entertaining either yourself or others. When you tilt the world to helping people meet their needs, you ask very different questions. And we believe we can do that uniquely through a combination of tech and touch. Meaning sometimes people want digital experiences, sometimes they want very physical experiences. And in our case, what are we doing? Sometimes they want experiences actually in their home. So we've created things like an in-home advisor who can actually come to your home and help you assess whatever it is that you want. You have dead spots in your Wi-Fi, we can help you with that. You want that amazing sound system, we can help you with that. This idea of meeting our customers where they are and fulfilling their needs is incredibly important. It sounds very basic, but think about years of selling based on the technical specifications of a TV. And instead, I would completely change that conversation to just help me understand, what's your family like? What would you like to do? How are you going to use it? Is gaming important to you? It's a very different way to think about meeting our customers where they are. And when it's done well, you unlock amazing moments that are like really emotionally important. So I'll use one last example. We're getting into the health space. Why would you get into the health space, Best Buy? Because the world is changing rapidly and people want to age in their homes. There will be 50% more people over the age of 65 in the next 20 years. You've got 10,000 people turning 65 every single day. And there are more and more tools you can use in your home to age gracefully. But not many people know what they are. Not many people would know how to use it. I have a 100-year-old grandma. And it is very nice for me to know how often she's getting up, how often she's opening the refrigerator door, how often she's accessing her medicine. I can be on the road and know those things and be able to check on her. That is a world that is developing, and we believe, again, what are we here to do? We're here to help people age in their homes longer with the help of technology. So you can start to see when you think about what people really need and how technology is evolving to meet those needs, you approach the work fundamentally differently.
Well, and I think it's very creative that you're thinking beyond not just entertainment devices or communication devices, but all types of devices that can improve the quality of life in our homes, and particularly for different age groups.
Well, and
really fascinating.
I think what's happening, and I think you all could attest to it, our homes are only getting more connected. We're only putting more devices in them. And often those devices don't play nicely together. Like none of us own one ecosystem of products. No matter how much you like Apple, I guarantee your router is from someone else. And so this idea of all your ecosystems trying to play nicely together is incredibly difficult, and it's only gonna get harder. We're only gonna have more streaming services, more different ecosystem, the new Windows update, the new Apple phone. Like I live this, and then I added 2 kids who, of course, have all their devices. This world will only be more complex, and customers will only expect us to meet them where they are more often.
Well, I have a home in California. We really need the Geek Squad.
We can help you.
Because all the pieces were put in separately.
Total tech
No, my
support.
husband told me this weekend. He's calling them, so we need them.
Anyone else? Let me know.
Yeah. So thinking about what you're doing, how exciting it is, and then of course your talent, your workforce is key to being able to do all of these exciting things you're doing. More and more we are all employing millennials and Gen Z, and this generation or generations is known for valuing culture, transparency, and communication, particularly in their workplace. So tell me what you're doing at Best Buy to attract and retain this next generation of leaders.
I'm going to start tactically. There are real tactical things that we're doing. We've spent a lot of time looking at our benefits and our portfolio of benefits and expanding our benefits to have mental health benefits, to have paid caregiver leave, meaning time you can spend to go take care of grandma if you need to. Making sure that we're investing in adoption and surrogacy benefits, like really trying to expand that portfolio of benefits has been very important to us. But it goes much broader than that. We also have been very active in our community efforts. We have what we call teen tech centers, where we actually work with community centers, put in a suite of technology devices, and then have an after-school program where kids can come, particularly in disadvantaged communities, to work with things like 3D printing or graphic design or music, and actually create pipelines. We also have Geek Squad academies, ways in which kids can get more access to technology, because access is half the battle. And so finding ways for our employees to also be involved in those things and volunteer. We've had a very strong focus on diversity and inclusion. Our board is half women. It is also very diverse in terms of racial and ethnic background, as is much of our leadership team, and we have a strong point of view around that. So there's tactics that we're working, but your point around culture is incredibly important. We have 3 guiding behaviors that we talk about at Best Buy. Be human, make it real, and think about tomorrow. Be human is incredibly important, because be human is about recognizing each other and our stories as part of what makes us really important and productive people and employees. And creating an environment where it is not only acceptable, but a bit expected for you to treat each other in that human way is a very different cultural change for us. And you can see it even if you look at, a lot of our employees are on LinkedIn, which you all can imagine. The stories they share are almost never about themselves. They're about lifting up others. And that idea of perpetuating that kind of culture, back to your initial question, and how you attract others to come be a part of that culture, it has to be more systemic than just the tactics that you put into place.
So looking at the other side of that coin, we're trying to prepare those people that will be future leaders at Best Buy. What's your best advice for us as we're preparing them today so that they'll be successful at Best Buy or a company like yours in 10 years from today? What should we be paying most attention to?
I love this question, because I should be asking you guys. This is ridiculous that you're asking me. I'm going to answer this on two spectrums. So again, the tactical side of things. Data is the new currency. period. And for so many of us who went through school, 30 years ago, learning a finance background was really important because that was kind of the currency of business. Having a data and analytics background or capability now, as data is the currency of business, is incredibly important. And it is where the world is going. So there's this real tactical, experiential question. I think, though, the thing that a liberal arts education uniquely can also help provide is a better feeling with a more comfort with being uncomfortable. Meaning the world's moving fast and jobs are much less likely to be very linear in nature. They're much more likely to be horizontal or for you to jump from doing this thing here to that thing there. The quantity of jobs that haven't even been created that your students will go into is only exponentially growing over time, which means young people in particular more and more have to get a little bit more used to that feeling of being uncomfortable, of not always having the answer. Coding is a great example. Coding by its very nature means you're constantly going to do something wrong, iterate on it, and fix it. But that is a very different and uncomfortable feeling. And I think coming from a world where it used to be, I hand in my test, you grade it, I get it back, and I know whether it was good or bad, to a world where I am debating very interesting, sticky topics and thinking about the ethical implications, which, by the way, also applies to the data and analytics question. That is where the future is going. And I think the more you can do to help us have young people that are comfortable in those spaces, the better the chance that they're successful.
Well, thank you. So we have several audience questions, and thank you to all of you who sent in questions beforehand. I appreciate it very much. So let me turn to just a couple of those.
Great.
Several are future focused, and let's continue that future focus kind of dialogue. One is, how do you see Best Buy in 10 years with the changing landscape in the retail brick and mortar world? And another one that's kind of related, so I'll let you kind of choose. Can you talk about any technologies or trends you think will impact not only what you sell and the services you offer, but how you operate over the long term? So where do you see Best Buy in 10 years?
Oh my goodness, that's just so long. Retail is like, where are we going to be in 3 months? This is a really, there's a couple of parts to this. Yeah. I often sit with our investors, as you can imagine, and talk to them about where we're headed. The hardest part about the things we sell, if I were to overly simplify, is I don't know what they're going to be. If you'd asked me 5 years ago if smart speakers that we talked into would be the #1 selling product, over a holiday period that we had, which they weren't, but you get the idea. I never would have thought that. And the question of what the product is going to be or where the world is going, I often can't answer. And that makes people wildly uncomfortable, by the way. But the idea that technology innovation is going to slow down or stop magically is also completely out of the picture. And so I spend a lot of time saying, I know the innovation curves are going to continue. I can't tell you exactly what the next product hit's going to be 3 years from now. I'm not totally sure. But I definitely know people are going to keep investing, and the teams that are sitting here do an amazing job taking and sifting through those technology innovations and finding the ones that meet actual customer needs and then helping customers understand why they want them in their lives. And so 10 years from now, I am certain the suite of what we sell will look different. But it will all be things that will help customers solve their problems. And then the how we get that to customers will continue to evolve dramatically. We're all used to, we are frankly now like spoiled as customers. I can get my thing delivered in an hour. I can order it over voice if I want. I can call a call center. I can stop by a store and pick it up. I can get it in a day because that's how shipping works. This concept in 10 years, my inclination is we will be only more spoiled as customers. And we, as a retailer, have to find ways to meet you where you are. And that my hypothesis is more often than not, that will be in your home and finding ways to make these things work for you in your home. But at the same time, we're going to have to keep pace digitally, physically, with voice, and with the experiences the way that you want them.
So we have an audience question that kind of takes us back to the topic of your employee base. And you talked about some of the things you do to attract and retain the best talent. But they want you to engage with them. And so tell me, I find communication is the biggest challenge, frankly, as a leader of an organization. And mine's not nearly as large as yours. So how do you engage with your employees? What methods do you use?
This will be fast. My whole PR team is here, so I bet they're just waiting to see how I answer.
I can't wait to do
I know. With as many methods and means as we can think of. And it's almost like the corollary of the customer question, except with your employees. Meaning, we do videos, quick snippets of information straight from someone so they can see you. I go out to the stores and on the road. After the day after Thanksgiving, we went and we hit 4 separate states and 10 stores to just go out there and say hi to people. I mean, you guys, we have Microsoft Teams on our computers, which means everyone's connected via Teams. Trust me, I'll get little messages from, a Geek Squad agent in store 1147 in Virginia who would like to give me some feedback. And I'll always answer that. That's fine. That's just how it works today. I am on LinkedIn quite a bit trying to interact with our teams because when you have 120,000 people, I can't get to know them all personally. But the accessibility actually makes them all think they can get to know me personally. And so how I try as best I can to actually set aside time to use every communication vehicle that we have to just try to be out there and be seen and be seen as a human is really important, certainly for me. And the team does an amazing job helping to enable all these different strategies. And then what you find is it's not just about me, by the way. It's about how can a suite of leaders all have some presence like this and all be seen as accessible and all be singing from the same hymnal in terms of the strategy in particular.
It continues to amaze me, all the different media channels you have to use to really reach all of the people. I mean, there's so many things that I never pay attention to that my children always pay attention to, and they're 34 and 38. And so it really is, as the channels have increased, it makes it much more complex.
And spending some time putting yourself in someone else's shoes is also very important. My personal perspective on mentorship has changed a bit, meaning as you go throughout your career, you tend to find mentors who are more accomplished than you or who are further along in their careers than you. And now my perspective is how can I find people who have very different life experiences than me? And so I have mentors that are materially younger than me who are teaching me about TikTok, which I'm still confused about. But
I'm still confused about that too, so that makes
that
me
one
feel
I don't.
better.
I haven't. I'm working. But genuinely spending time with students who are in a completely different life place than I am, have a completely different upbringing than I do, and just trying to learn. I think it helps me think about how could I communicate differently.
Well, let me end. We have time for just one more question, and this was an audience question that appealed to me a little bit because, again, it goes back to how we have some similarities in our past. And this person said, near the beginning of your career, did you intend to pursue a career in finance? I've read before that females with backgrounds in accounting and finance tend to be more successful than those without.
Well,
do you agree?
Let's see. I went to college as a chemical engineering major, so that wasn't from day one. After spending 3 hours in labs 5 times a week, I thought this is not going to be the thing for me. But I had that kind of linear brain and thought process, and I had a really excellent professor who was also a mentor to me who just helped me find my way. Which, by the way, back to the liberal arts education, the amount of attention and help I had along the way to find that path. I think there are many different ways your career can grow. Any way you can, pushing yourself to understand how a business works at its very core, which tends to lend itself well to finance. You tend to have to understand how the business works deeply across the business. But I think any way you can educate yourself deeply about what it takes for a business to be successful, that is going to help you learn about the business and be more curious about other parts of it. And my personal point of view was, whether it was finance or something else, having a great deal of breadth in my career was really important to me. And the nice part about a big company and the nice part about Best Buy is that you have a chance to be able to garner that breadth. And so I don't know that it's the only way. Certainly for me, it was a great way to push myself to understand the business more deeply.
Well, and you've certainly been very successful at that. So
Thank you.
Please join me with a warm thank you to Corie Berry. Thank you.